Sandi MacIver here, Stampin' and Blog and Stampin' with Sandi, and we are playing today with Totally Techniques. This is our once a month blog cup with a bunch of my Stampin' friends from around the world. Each month we get together and we do a technique, and the technique this month is Faux Silk. So as you can see, I have a little faux silk going on back here, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Okay, let's start with the cardstock and pieces that you're going to need. Mint macaroon is the card base. Macaron, sorry, 4 1/4 by 11. You're going to score and fold that at 5 1/2, and then we've got this lovely little piece of winter Wonderland designer vellum, 4 by 5 1/4. We're going to be working on a piece of craft cardstock, 2 3/4 by 5. The mat for that is basic black, 2 7/8 by 5 1/8. You're also going to need a strip 1 by 5 of basic black, and I've already gold embossed the sentiment on that little guy. And grab a scrap of gold foil sheet 1 by 2, and you're going to cut that out with the smallest of the banner framelits. You're also going to need a snowflake from Snowflake Elements, and you're going to need a bow created from the gold cording trim. Easy for me to say, right? Okay, the ink and the sticky stuff. You're going to be using StazOn Black. We're going to use Whisper White Craft. The sticky stuff, I decided on Fast Fuse. I needed some glue dots, and for the technique, you're actually going to need a glue stick or spray adhesive. You're also going to need a piece of tissue paper, and it can be wrinkled up. I save all mine from gifts and things like that. We're going to wrinkle it anyway, but you do want to make it bigger than the piece that we're going to be working on, because we're going to be scrunching it a whole bunch after we do a little application to it. And you do not want the tissue paper that is really, really shiny on one side, because it doesn't really work very well for this application. Okay, so we're starting with the StazOn. You want to make sure it's good and juicy, because this is going to end up being covered. So this is the shadow that's going to show up behind your other stamping. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm inking up the stamp, and I'm stamping it on the left hand side, and I'm going to re-ink it and stamp it on the right. I'm going to leave a little space in between, just so there's not too much confusion going on by the time I get the tissue paper on the middle. Okay, so that is my background piece. Then I'm going to bring in my tissue. I would highly recommend that you protect your work surface for this application, especially with the tissue, because this ink is going to go through the tissue. Okay, and there's glue coming as well. So throw down one of the Stampin' Up grid sheets. They work really, really well. If you have a big crease in the middle of your piece of tissue paper, like I do, try and flatten that out a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to have a really wrinkly tree. Okay, let me see if I can nail this. Here we go. Messing around with that. Hopefully my ink didn't dry out on me. Okay, we're good. We're golden. Alright, so we want to let that dry for a second. Sorry about that. I have a zoom lens on my camera, and it's really, really heavy. So when it's pointing down, it very, very slowly focuses in on what I'm working on. I fixed it for you. Sorry about that. Okay, so silicone craft sheet is a good idea as well. You're going to put your little art piece on top of it. You're going to get out your glue stick. This is a Stampin' Up! Glue stick. And I'm covering the entire surface of my art piece, and that's my craft cardstock. And you do want to make sure that it is completely covered, okay? All the way to the edges. That's why we're working on the silicone, because it won't stick to it, they say. Okay, so take this beautiful little thing that you just stamped and scrunch it up. Okay? By doing this, it's going to put all the little creases into it that make it look like linen or silk. And so you're going to uncrease it just enough so that you can see the image again, okay? Just like this, but you don't want to put it down on the table and flatten it out, because then you're just going to take out all those little creases again. But what you are going to do is lay it down on your art piece, and without taking the crinkles out, you're going to pat it down and just work your way around. And you do want all those little lines in there. That is what causes the technique. Isn't that cool? Doesn't it look like raw silk? I love this technique. Plus I get my fingers dirty, and you know I love to do that. Okay, so when it's pressed down really, really well, you can use a brayer if you want at this point, but usually I've got it down well enough. Don't rub it, okay? You'll tear the tissue paper. And I'm living proof, you will tear the tissue paper. Okay, when you have it all laid down, you are going to pick it off of your silicone sheet and you're just going to give it a little trim. I like to turn it over to the back so I can see where I'm going. Just like this. Try and get it as close as you can because we do have a mat for this piece, and so if you've got ragged edges, it will show. So go back and do a little trimming if you have to. I got a little end sticking out right there. Other than that, I think we're pretty good. There we go. Let me zoom in for you. Never does it when I want it to, right? Okay, so there you are, up close and personal with it. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so at this point, we are going to do another application. Okay, so the stamp set that we're playing with is called Wonderland. That's where I got the tree from. Okay, that's where the sentiment came from. Now we're going to play with this little guy, which are these little snowflakes, and we're going to be using the Craft white ink. Okay, this ink, Craft ink, is it's sticky, it's gooey, it's very hard to get off your stamps when you're done, but it's also solid image. This looks awesome on dark colors. Okay, and you're going to overstamp some snowflakes over your image, just like that. That's plenty. So it gives it just kind of a little bit of snowing going on in the background. I think that's kind of cool. Okay, so we're going to let this dry for a little bit and we're going to finish the card and then we'll add it on. But I did want to say there are a few different ways that you can do this technique. There are some people who like to stamp on here and color it all and then lay it down as well. That's not wrong, it's just a different technique, okay? So this was the very first way that I learned how to do this. And as we move along, maybe this technique will come around together again and we'll try a couple of different versions of it. For now, let's finish the card. I'm going to use my fast fuse and I'm playing with vellum, and you may or may not know that adhesive shows through on vellum, so my way around that is stay inside where you know your art piece is going to cover it. That simple. You can also not see through where the gold part is on this beautiful vellum, so if you require the corners to be nailed down, just stick a glue dot underneath where the gold is, and again you won't be able to see it. But this does a pretty good job of holding it down. Just like that. Okay, so then I'm going to turn this little guy over and we'll add our fast fuse to him. If you're in North America, fast fuse is on sale this week. Alright, there we go. Part of the online extravaganza sale. And I'm attaching this, my art piece, to my piece of basic black. That's my little mat that I got going on. Okay, so for this one, I decided to pop it up with dimensionals. So somewhere around here I have some. There we are. There we go. And let's put one in this corner and one in this corner. So we're just going to quickly remove the protective covers on these little guys. Always a fun adventure. Make sure your trees are the right way up. Make sure your card's opening the right way. And you're going to center this on your card front. Little bit of gold showing at the top and at the bottom. There we go, just like that. And again, I have my little sentiment here, so I'm just going to turn it over and add a couple of dimensionals to it. And this is going to go centered along the bottom of the card. Usually what I do is try and cover up that line along the bottom of the ground. That way, if you didn't quite nail the two together when you were doing your background stamping, it doesn't matter because that covers it up. Just like that. Okay, so we got our little, where did my glue dots go? They always walk away. We have our little banner that we cut from the gold, and I'm going to place that up there, and then I'm going to use a glue dot on my snowflake. I'm going to pop that little guy there. I'm going to use another glue dot for my bow, but what I do with them is I fold them in half, and then that way they hide right behind the knot in the bow, and voila, you can't even see it. How cool is that? And I like glue dots. They're good and strong. They hold things in place. So, there you go. There's my take on this week's Faux Silk technique, and as you can see, no two are ever the same. You get little lines and little curvy things going on all over the place. It's just kind of cool the way it turns out, and depending on where you stamp your trees, how far up and down they go, and depending on how much ink you have in your ink pad, how white your little snowflakes are going to be. I think I need to re-ink mine. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping in. Hope you enjoyed the technique this week, and enjoy the rest of the blog hop, and we'll see you again next month for another Totally Techniques. Bye now.